let's do this. Okay.
Wait, hold on.
What are the timings?
5, 5, 5, 5, 3.
I need to. There you go.
Don't fall, don't fall.
Well, was there a projector to come on?
Hopefully not.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. What's the 5 minute? Alright, time starts now as first speaker in front of you. I strongly affirm today's resolution that Obamacare is more harm than good. We define today's criteria on the sub benefits and the resolution that this is not a resolution. Definition of Obamacare this is also known as the Affordable Care Act, passed in 2010. This is a program that was intended to give Americans more access to affordable quality health insurance and reduce the growth in U.S. healthcare spending. So what we're going to be doing here is weighing the harm versus the good. Okay, our first contention is that many of the programs that have been given by Obamacare is not actually being accepted by healthcare providers or doctors. So 71% of the new insurance from the law, which is actually this year, 2015, according to CNN, so it comes through Medicaid. And 55% of those people are actually being denied by their doctors because, the doctors aren't accepting their plans through Medicaid. And which means we have many people who aren't getting access to health coverage which they should be under the law, yet they're not getting the health care they need. And
Mira,
they're
please come to
paying
the
for
main
it.
office. You have someone waiting.
So what we
Mira,
see
to
is,
the office,
what's the
please.
point of people
Thank
paying for a plan if it's not covered? So Obamacare has pretty much made these people pay for them. So our second contention is that of cost. So this is going to be subpoenaed. So our first contention was subpoint A is that of cost to the nation. So it was estimated that in March it would decrease by 29% from March 2015, according to projections. However, later studies released by the federal government show that taxpayers subsidized exchanges will have to rise more than $35 billion for a grand total of $77 billion just for this year alone. That's 2015. And in 2016, it's predicted to spend $116 billion. So, not really. For those of you who may not know, actually, there was a new tax law enacted because of Obamacare, and this is called the new net investment income tax. And this is a 3.8% tax. However, many people didn't notice because this was simply added on to some existing tax. So let's say you're paying $10,000 for your existing tax. You're simply paying $13,800. So many people assume the taxes are just gone up, but this isn't true. This is actually directly because of the new tax that Obamacare has brought. What we're seeing is that millions of Americans are being forced to pay for health coverage that, one, they may not necessarily be getting. Two, the taxes are just going to keep going up because as the price of Obamacare goes up, somebody's going to have to pay for that. And at the end, that's the American people, whether they're the ones who are actually going through Obamacare or not. So what we're seeing here is that many people are forced to spend money on Obamacare, and the price is rising higher. People are having to spend more on their taxes, and this actually affects families because they don't have enough money to spend on themselves and their own necessities, and rather being forced to spend money on these taxes that they may not even know about. So our contention B is that of cost to low middle class. So although Obamacare was intended to provide affordable care to everyone, so what we see here is that, like in 2012, a ruling by the Supreme Court ruled that states could opt out of Medicare expansion. So what happened was so people who earned 138% above the federal poverty line, now they didn't qualify for this care provided by Medicare. And for the states who didn't expand their Medicare coverage, many millennials, especially young adults, do not have coverage, and they couldn't afford paying out-of-pocket fees. Yet they couldn't out-of-pocket coverage. Yet they weren't covered by Medicare. So people in this gap, as a result of the law passed to give states more freedom when it comes to Obamacare. So many people didn't qualify for Obamacare. Didn't qualify for the Medicaid portion of Obamacare, but not enough to. But they didn't earn enough to qualify for other programs. So what we see is many people, millions. This is approximately 31 million people according to the Fiscal Times, and these 31 million people cannot afford coverage because they're either not covered because they earn too less to pay out of pocket, but they earn too much to be considered part of the Medicaid program. So what we see is that many people don't have health care, they can't afford it. Obamacare has crossed this gap in which 50-second grace period, and they don't have enough money to get health care. And with people living gap, it's local community health centers that have to provide health care for these people. So impact people who don't have health care. For all these reasons, I strongly affirm today's resolution that Obamacare has done more harm than good.
As the first speaker, in addition to showing today's resolution that Obamacare has done more harm than good. So we're going to cover our case before we get into their case. So first contention is that one, it's actually covering more people. So 42 million people have been 42 million people did not have insurance before Obamacare, but now they have more. I don't have a stat for that. Okay. 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 No. Wow. Okay. Just covers more people. And Obamacare has insured 17 million people, and the uninsured rate is projected to drop sharply during the 2016 open enrollment. Link or impact saves lives, and saving lives is good. Yeah. Okay. Also, yeah, it covers more people because more people are able to afford it, and that's it. Okay, refuting their case. So their first contention is that how stuff isn't being accepted, and people aren't. Okay, yeah, doctors aren't accepting Obamacare or whatever. Whatever, moving on. Second contention. Cost. So, okay, they stated that they stated that Americans are paying taxes to cover Obamacare, and how these people weren't, or these people have no money to spend, no money to spend on themselves. However, if they're already paying taxes, they already put the if they can pay taxes, they can probably pay for their insurance because a lot more people are insured now than under Obamacare. Yeah. So 62% of people in the middle class stated that they could not have paid for such care previously. So you actually see how more it's better for them anyway. So moving, and also the price of the healthcare costs are rising very slowly. So yeah. Yeah.
As the second speaker of the affirmative team, I strongly affirm today's resolution that Obamacare has done more harm than good. So first, I'll be addressing Ask's case and then my case. and then back to based on time. So AF's first contention was of how many medical services don't accept Obamacare, and NEG didn't address this, which means it was dropped, which means that because they haven't responded it to our point when they had the chance, it must be accepted as fact in today's round. So our second contention was that of cost, and first subpoint to it was cost of the nation in form of tax money, and NEG stated something about how these people could probably pay taxes anyway. I'm sorry, I get really that. Okay, so yeah, this isn't. They haven't directly stated that this has cost $77 billion in taxpayer money in 2015 and $116 billion of taxpayer money projected to be spent in 2016. And this is for a service that, according to our first contention, which is now fact, is rejected at 55% of doctors. So this is wasteful to be spending this much taxpayer money on something that doesn't yield results. So as of cost to low and middle class, all they have stated as response to this is that healthcare prices are rising slowly, and that 62% of middle class people feel that they couldn't have had their needs met as well as before. However, there are 31 million people who can't afford coverage out of their own pockets, and they're too well off to qualify for subsidies and they have to pay out of their pockets. So what we're seeing here is a gap between the poor and the less poor. So imagine it like this. So you have an economy divided into tenths. So then the bottom 5/10 is like the lower half. So who Obamacare is benefiting is the bottom 2/10. However, this is coming out of the pockets of the other 3/10 of the lower half because they're paying taxes to support this, and they don't qualify for subsidies themselves. So they're stuck in this gap where either they have to cut down their own hours, go part-time, decrease their income so they're eligible for subsidies, or they need to pay out of their own pocket, and that's something they just can't afford. So this is creating serious problems for many people in the lower middle class who aren't quite poor. So Obamacare is hurting middle class workers, and the Congressional Budget Office estimates that over the next decade, over 2.5 million people will choose to work less so that they are eligible for Obamacare. And people choosing to become less productive like this is detrimental to our economy as a whole, and NEG did not address how these people are caught in this gap between having to pay money they can't afford and not being eligible for subsidies. They just provided the statistic that 62% of the middle class say that they have it better, but AF logic clearly defeats this. So NEG's first and only contention was how more people are being covered, and 42 million people who haven't had insurance before have insurance now. First of all, CNN states that out of this number, only 66% have actually been paying their enrollment fees and are actively benefiting from this. Moreover, as we stated in our first contention, these benefits don't apply everywhere, and even though these people who might be poor are benefiting from this, it's harming a great majority of the lower middle class, who those 3/10 of people who are affected outweigh the 2/10 of people affected. And this was actually a study shown by the Brookings Institute that this is disproportionately affecting a greater amount of the poorer half than it is helping. So that outweighs the NEG's first contention. So for all these reasons, I strongly affirm today's resolution.
okay, the fact that it's covering more people is actually going to be more beneficial because it means that more people are going to be benefiting from this stuff. And even though 66%, or even though we need to consider the affirmative team's first intention as fact, you can still see that more people are being benefited from Obamacare because more people are getting coverage than they were before, which should outweigh other things. I'm not going to take a question.
It's just a point of clarification.
It's not.
Okay. So could you just tell me?
Clarify it in your own speech. Thank you. Yeah, you know. Okay. So can I just flip it? Okay. A major study of Medicaid stated that when people get insurance, they're less likely to experience financial distress and as a result get better mental health as well as physical health, and this prevents premature death. This is a new point. If you want to knock it or whatever. Wait, no. I'm speaking fast as well. I have like 5 minutes plus another like 3 minutes left, but
It's not even a hard question. I promise. What's your source for your how many people are enrolled in Obamacare? Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, we're gonna save more lives. This is gonna be more beneficial. What else? All employers must provide insurance for young adults and with pre-existing conditions, and they can't be denied health care. This directly includes their first intention, because people are being denied health care. Because actually, no, people are not being denied health care. People with pre-existing conditions can't be denied health care. Therefore, people are not being denied health care. I don't know now. So many things. So what's the point?
To get better.
But I don't have
To
just
practice coming back from a bad position in the bank.
how do I do that?
Repeat everything they said, bring up new points. Argue your best. Expand. What are pre-existing conditions? Why do they matter? What does it include? What effect does that have?
Okay, moving on. The second contention of the cost and it's decreasing. Or no, the cost is not was estimated to decrease, but it actually did not. Okay, so to clarify the thing when I said the price of healthcare costs are rising slowly, so yeah, they're rising slowly, which means, and they've been rising a lot slower than they have in the past, which means the whole thing about people are like, it's not going to be as huge of an impact as they say there is going to be because it's, again, rising slowly and more people are being benefited by Obamacare than being directly hurt by it. So we gotta outweigh the people who are being benefited by it, I guess, because like more people for for every 846 people who got insurance, one person was likely to live longer. Keep going. So the uninsured are about 25 or no shit. Okay. So people are benefiting from Obamacare. Lots of good stuff is happening. It should outweigh the fact that people are doing better because of Obamacare over whatever they brought up, because at least some change is happening. At least more people are getting Obamacare, or getting covered over whatever has happened in the past. Crush it, Christie.
Okay. Yeah, so it's a brief off time. It's 3 minutes, right?
Yeah.
I'll be going over next option voter issues and why the judge should be voting back. Time starts now at the first speaker. First speaker that asked too much wrongly from today's resolution. Obamacare is more harm than good. So just bringing up what the next team has brought up throughout this debate, what they said is that more people are getting insured, and then what we see here is that, health prices are rising slowly. So they said that 42 million people are enrolled, but then we brought up the statistic that only 66% have paid their first month premiums, which clearly refutes the fact that the total, if only 66% are paying their first month premiums, that's like, that's like, wait, how many people again? Yeah, you did the math, okay, I can't
Like 25.
Exactly, okay? So it's not as many people as are saying it's not going to be such a huge impact. And actually, the amount of bad harm that Obamacare has done is clearly going to impact the rest of the people who may be health. And that's, so going on to our first contention, which is that of doctors not accepting the coverage. So although the next team brought up the fact that employers have to provide coverage, that's true. Some of the companies do pay for their employees. However, that doesn't necessarily mean the doctor's going to accept that coverage that employees get through their company. So what we see here is what we brought up is that 71% of the new insurance from the Affordable Care Act and is actually through Medicaid. And 55% of the people who go through this Medicaid program aren't even accepted by their doctors. They're turned away from medical service because their plan is not accepted by the doctors. What we see is that millions of people are not getting the health care they deserve, and what's worse, they're even paying for it. They're paying for health care, but they're not getting any health care. And this is what Obamacare has said, has had people wasting their money for health care they're not getting. Yeah, second contention. So the cost of Obamacare is insanely huge. We've even had to bring up a new tax for this. So this tax was 3.8%, and although people may not notice, it's actually kind of secretly added on to pre-existing tax. They didn't want to make a big deal about it for obvious reasons. So what we see here is that it's the net projection cost for 2015 is $77 billion. In 2016, it's $116 billion. This money is coming from the taxpayer. This is the money that taxpayers are paying for. For what? For insurance that may not even be accepted by doctors, or insurance that they might not be receiving. What we're seeing here is that it's simply not the money that is being spent. The outcome that is supposed to be happening is simply not equivalent to the money being spent. We're seeing people being rejected by the doctors. We're seeing people who are falling to the ground. All this $177 billion is supposed to be helping the whole nation, but it's not. This is a waste of money. Yeah, and then there are people falling through the cracks. I should learn to manage my time better. Yeah. I strongly affirm today's resolution.
Earl, how could you fix your case? How would you fix it? Not with big things. What tangible things would you do to make your side of the debate better?
Have more evidence, have more things to say, have actual points.
Right? What would your points be? What would you talk about?
For covering more people, I would maybe say, like, instead of saying that, or I